Oh
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
we're
no,
going
it's
live.
been
That's
a long
awesome.
time. 5 years, yeah. It doesn't
Yeah, it's been
time
5
just
years.
flies, doesn't it?
Yeah, I doesn't feel like it was 5 years ago. And yeah, I've just been doing the same thing. I've been acting in animes and cartoons and TV. But that was one of the first you really took a chance on me. I appreciate it. I loved recording that
Yeah, no
stuff for you.
problem.
And I still think that's a good project that kids are going to respond to it, even in a small
Hopefully.
format, you know. Yeah.
I think
No,
so.
I
Look,
think
we've grown so much in the last 5 years
yeah.
since we first met, and I've seen that your career has taken off quite substantially. I was
Oh,
looking at your
thank you.
IMDb. I was like, whoa.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that's not even all of it, not to brag, but sometimes they can't post about it on IMDb until it comes out. So I have a couple things down the
Oh.
pipeline too. But it's been amazing. I've been having a good time. But yeah, even then I was working out of a studio, something like this.
Well, I'm
But
glad to hear that.
cartoons, like short form content, I've just noticed has been, especially on something like, honestly, I'm not a YouTuber, but I do notice that YouTube is so successful. Um, short stuff like that goes viral can probably make a like more of an awareness impact than we even think. I don't know how to make something go viral. That's the next hill to climb, I guess.
So I'm curious. So why haven't you taken a huge stance on social media like a lot of, I guess, up and coming celebrities like they try to do? Like,
Why haven't I?
yes.
Wait, that's a good question.
Uh,
Maybe I should. First of all, thank you for calling me a upcoming celebrity. That's very amazing, and I'm glad this is being recorded so I can remember that for the rest of my life. Um, I totally is the thing that I care about. I mean, like, when people say like, "Oh, if you make it, what's your platform?" Like, whether or not I quote unquote make it, whatever that means, this is my platform. I mean, like, my work on my mom's book. I narrated my mother's book, which is her story, of course, about being
right.
alienated from her children. I played her in the book, and like, I always say, like, I don't always say, but I do think oftentimes, or I experience every day, that it's very rare that the material that you work on when you're an actor, like, is meaningful to you. A lot of times you're like, oh
Right.
my God, money. Thank God I got some money. Oh, I got something to do. Thank God people aren't going to be like, you're an actor. What movie were you in? Like, at least thank God I have an answer now for the next year. I can ride on this for the next year, and then a year from now I'll be washed up again. And so it's not that often that you're like, wow, this is artistically fulfilling and emotionally. I mean, it
Right.
was really fulfilling for me. And that's like the work that I want to continue doing. I mean, I'm joining the youth board. I know we're meeting this weekend. And I think with them, I'm not amazing at social media, but I think with them I'll be able to strategize and find a way to um really bring this out of my presence, because it's, get this out there, because it's something I believe in. And it was such a, like, the joy of doing my mother's book, of narrating it. First, I helped to write it originally because
I heard.
she torn her rotator cuff, and so I actually did write it with her. But then, like, so that I literally typed it as she dictated it, but like, narrating it, and I produced the audiobook myself. I so far, it just came out, so so far I don't know if I've made any profits on it. But to do that to me was like so aligned with what I believe in and what I care about. I actually didn't even look. Like, I don't need to know if anybody bought it. Well, it's partially my contribution, is all the hours I spent, the work I did with my audio producer, the cuts and the edits and everything we did to it was, there's so much that goes into doing that, making an audiobook. You have to, like, change the cover. The cover has to be square. For some reason, Fiverr, no one could figure out how to do that. Fiverr is really full of AI, and AI is just like not quite at the level that it needs to be to really produce something. No one could figure out how to make it. I mean, I had to go through like a couple people until I finally got someone who was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I can make this a square." Um, there were some really funny, weird answers. People would like, the thing would be like obviously AI generated and attached to it. Like, it would look like a wizard instead of a woman in a burqa. And I'd be like, "This is, you obviously just ran this through an AI. Like, if you were an AI." If you looked at this, if you had eyes, you know that this wasn't what I asked for. So that recording it for so many hours, and then you have to re-record whenever you mess up. I think I messed up in the whole 100,000 word book. I think I messed up like 200 times, which isn't that high.
Wow.
But it does mean that you have to re-record 200 sentences, which takes forever. I mean, it doesn't take forever, but it's a couple
How long did
hours.
it take?
To record the book, let's see, the book is like 12 hours long. Everything included. I worked with this woman, Jane Fujita, this accent coach, to
Mhm.
make sure that I played, there's so many characters from all over the world, and so I hired an accent coach to make sure that I was doing it like not in a corny way, that I was A, doing the accent, and B, getting it. There's a character in the book that I hate this. My mom describes this one character as, he was Italian, he had an Italian accent, but I detected a Midwestern twang. And I'm like, at the time that she wrote that, I was like, oh my God, he's so funny. He's great. This is such an interesting character. And then when I had to narrate it, I was like, what was I thinking? Why did I tell her to change it? How am I going to combine
Mistake
those?
alert.
Yeah, like, but so I hired an accent coach. That was a couple hours, and I did that for a few weeks. And then the book itself to record, I'd say like between a full 24 to 36 hours of recording time.
Wow.
Yeah, each chapter, let's say it's about an hour long chapter, little more, little less. The
Right.
book is, 11, 12 hours long. I'd say about maybe it takes double time. Some of them were really fast. Some of the chapters were short. Some of them I was really clicked in. Others I was like, some of them I redid because I was like, I bet sometimes I was in the zone. It was the first one I ever produced on my own. And I was actually at the same time working on a project at Audible, like a multicast drama with a bunch of really experienced narrators. And I was like, oh my God. And then I listened back to it and then I had to cut. And then one of them was like, oh, I actually never listen back. If you're paying for quality control, you don't really have to listen back. They'll just find the errors and give them back to you.
And you
And
learned
I
that
was
to be the case.
oh, really? And he goes, yeah, I mean, I guess I listened back when I was like, new and insecure, but like, who has the time, right? And I was like, yeah, oh my God, who has the time? I'm definitely not new and insecure. Like, so that sort of changed me. I mean, I'm glad. I learned that around chapter 3. Thank goodness I didn't learn that at chapter 10. Um, but this is something that I am excited to go back to the question. This is something, this is a cause that I am excited to take a stance about online. And I'm happy when I can involve it in my art. I'm really happy about that. And I'm excited to work with the youth board too to see ways that we
Yeah,
can
and they're
put out
excited
there.
to have you. So it took you 3 to 4 times and longer to do the actual audible than it would take to read the book. And then the key part, which you already mentioned, you were reading your mom's memoir. How did that feel? Like you were actually playing your mom in
Okay.
audio.
It was amazing. First of all, I really felt like I understood. I mean, we're very close. And I
Right.
helped her write the book. I was there when she wrote the book, but my experience with her when she wrote the book was, even though I am her daughter and I love her so much, it was sort of from an outsider's perspective. So there were times that I would be like, I believe it or not, there actually were times that I would be really angry with her when I was helping her write it. Because of course, parents, mothers and daughters, they fight all the time, but because I was like, a lot of horrible things. The book, I don't know if you've read it or if anyone's reading it. So the book is about my
I've read a few chapters of it.
awesome. The book is about and it's sort of more for women, but I think men can get something out of it too. It is an entertaining story at the very least. It's very twisty and turny. My mother in the 80s lived in Saudi Arabia. She was married to a Saudi Arabian national and she had 2 children with him. When they came back to America and got a divorce, he abducted them in the night and she didn't find my half siblings for 14 years. I'm from her second marriage, so I was like 10 years old when my brother and sister were old enough to come to college in America, and my mom reunited with them. Um, Coincidentally, like, many years after that, I was looking for voiceover work. Someone sent me Find My Parent on LinkedIn. And when I met with Enrique, I was like, you're not going to believe this. I think I might be the right, I think I might be the perfect person for this job. Um,
I remember
because of my
that.
parents. It was wild. But anyway, so when I was reading my mom's, the book isn't just endless suffering, which I'm really pleased to say. And that this is something that when we were seeking agents and publishers, a lot of them said if we're going to read a book about abuse, it can't just, or anything bad, it can't just be, we're so tired of endless suffering. And so the book actually has a lot of intriguing, lighthearted cultural moments. But at the same time, a lot of horrible things happened to my mom while she was in Saudi Arabia. She witnessed a lot of, extremism and like law and order. That's, I don't want to give anything away, but she witnessed a lot of on violence and unfair things. Her children were kidnapped from her, and in my life, growing up with these siblings and knowing their family, this is an ancient culture. They actually would call me their granddaughter, like my grandfather, I guess, my siblings' grandfather. Their cousin says I'm her cousin. That's just how it works there. It's very traditional. Um, the
Wow.
idea of family is very big. My mother is a daughter of that family, even though she left them, even though she divorced them. But I had only known them as these people that I loved. I knew there was some weird stuff. I never met my siblings' father or anything, but I only knew them as people that I loved, and I only knew them as people that my mother loved. And so when I was reading the book and hearing about all these horrible things, I was like so angry at everybody in the book, but also at her for like why I don't know why it came out of me this way, but I was like, how can you forgive everyone? How can you have told me hundreds of fun stories about like my mom had one that Italian guy who was also from the Midwest. Like how could my whole life I've heard stories about this amazing fun guy that was like her friend in Saudi Arabia. They were two Westerners, they were best friends. In the book, she risks her life to help him get a girlfriend and get married in Saudi Arabia. And he couldn't even like put a call through to her kids for all the years that she was separated from them. And I'm like, this is how can you possibly like talk to everyone all those years that we spent getting to know them again here in the States and in London and across, everywhere we could meet them. Why do you forgive them? Like, I was actually angry at her. It was totally misplaced. I should have been angry on her behalf. And the amazing thing about my mom is that she just was like, I didn't let it eat away at me. I couldn't. And this is something I'm pretty moved by. So that was how I felt helping her write the book because I was on the outside. When I
Right.
acted characters of the book, like when I performed the role of my mom, first I was like, damn, this book is so entertaining. Okay. Like this is really fun to act and this is really interesting and this is really good. Like I have to say, I wanted to her credit, the book, my mom is a first-time author, but the book is written in the way that she speaks. And my mom is a great speaker. I know you've had her on the pod or you have meetings with her. I mean, she speaks in such an entertaining way. So
Yeah,
the book was really
she
entertaining.
is
And
absolutely.
I was like, I really felt like really empathized with her. And I didn't have that like, oh my God, like what's wrong with you? Why do you still like these? Like, how could you ever look at these people again? Outside in feeling. I just was like, no, it's my family. And my mom always says to me, like, you have to move on. You must figure out a way to move on and forgive people. You cannot let things um like you can't be cursed. You can't let things curse you forever. You have to find a way to move forward. And when I say like, how did you do it when your kids were stolen? Like, how did you move forward? How could you? Like, not like how dare you, but how did you find the strength? One of the things she tells me is that she was like, what was I gonna do? Like, it was just at first it was enough just to get out of bed. And she would say, okay, well, I guess my heart's still beating and I am alive, so I might as well go through the day. And I think she also started to feel like, they're kids now, but one day they'll be adults and they'll have the ability and they might look for me. And they kind of did. They might look for me. And I I don't wanna, I wanna be there. I wanna be a whole person when they find me. I wanna have a life. I don't wanna have just been racked by this forever. I wanna come to them as a like, WHOLE, of course, that whole a whole
Wow.
person. And I'm really inspired by that, you know.
So
That's
you're basically the co-author of this book to some extent, and and
oh,
how did
oh
you
wait,
feel like after you? Huh?
yeah, tell me. In some way,
I mean,
I
like, so
did.
what did you learn about your mom being able to forgive these people? Like, what did that tell you about yourself? Like, oh, what did it tell you about your mom?
Okay, about myself, I was like, wow, I got a lot of work to do on myself because my whole life, okay, is like a fight between hope and despair. That's an artist's life, though, so that's okay. Um, I was like, wow, I mean, it's just like my mom did live an entirely different, but I'm like, oh, she had a different life before I was born. And I write about this in the foreword to the book. I don't mean, um, like she didn't have a different life, like, before kids, she was, like, wild and then she settled down. I mean, like, before me, she was, like, literally a Muslim living in a converted Muslim in Saudi Arabia with 2 other kids and an entire network, and even in America, she wasn't living, we were in New York, like, she wasn't in New York, and she was a completely different person, and then somehow she had a second life that was, like, raising me, and then I think her 3rd life is sort of, like, now, it's still or maybe her 4th life after this is, like, her 4th life. Cats have 9 lives, thank goodness, we're not even halfway there, but I think her 4th life now is, like, she is in contact my sister's here, my brother's in Saudi Arabia, we're in contact with them. It's it's as close as, we're with them, and then I'm here too, and she's telling her story. It feels sort of like this is it. This is the phase of your life where you get every piece of it. You get
Right.
those, get your children and your American life, and you don't have to hide. So I learned a lot about my mom. Yeah. And I played her. Again, her character, the book goes from when she's 17 to when she's like 30 years old. And um, I think, and I think the book has had some has had mostly really positive responses. A couple reviewers were like, "Oh my God, I was shaking my head. Like, why did she keep going with this guy?" But most people were pretty sympathetic because they understand what it is, and to be in love, and also to be a young woman, and to be naive. Like, um, I just like the thing that I think makes the story so successful and makes people get to the end of the book is that and she really accomplished this well. We accomplished it well when I was helping her type it. She accomplished it great with her editor. Is that my mom was very honest and kept herself really relatable. She didn't try to like pretend that she didn't make a mistake. She was real about what her life was like, the good and the bad, the fun things that kept her going and kept her there, the things that she was afraid of, all the red flags she ignored. I think we literally have that phrase in the book. And I think that honesty is what makes again, like, 'cause I know some people were like, "Disgusting, like, what an idiot. How could you go with the guy from that country?" I know there are people like that who felt that way about the book. I saw a reviewer like, "I was shaking my head this whole time. 3 out of 5, 3.5 stars. What's up with her? Why did she keep going back to him?" Like, I've seen people say that, but the overwhelming response is like, "Wow, I couldn't put it down. This poor woman, like, I can't believe it. I followed her journey. I can't believe what happened. I'm so glad she's found those kids again, but what a story." I think most of the people get through the book because of the way that it's written in a very relatable way, and that's hard to do because you have to basically agree to humiliate yourself if you're gonna do that. You have to expose yourself, and, I I'm really proud of my mom for doing that. I think that's why the book has people who've read it have really responded positively, and I hope that it takes, you know, parental alienation, which is a big I mean, that was, like, the theme of a lot of my childhood, the theme was, "This happened to me, how am I gonna get well, my mom actually shielded me from her grief, but when my siblings when they were, like, coming back
Hmm.
into orbit, reaching 16, 17 years old, parental alienation and abduction, cross international child abduction was a big was something that suddenly like I was like 10 years old and I knew about like the Hague Treaty, it was something we all knew about and talked about. It was really like the topic of it was something that my family was dealing with because they were getting to the age where we'd be able to find them and my mom had been tipped off. I can tell you all that in a minute, but I think the book is going to be, I hope the book, because it's so entertaining, I hope it brings a lot of eyes to this cause, which is stopping this, being aware of this. And that's one good thing about having an entertaining book. I always think about this, which is like a lot of, especially in this day and age, like starting in the 2016 era, a lot of our media, a lot of our entertainment is like moralistic. It usually is based on like it's a metaphor for this struggle or that struggle, and that's fine. Struggle is part of the human experience, so I'm not necessarily judging that. But um, I always say to myself, okay, if the movie or the book was really interesting and sucked me in, and I learned something about the world from it, I learned something about somebody else's pain or my own pain from it, I'd prefer, as long as it actually entertained me and the story was good, I don't mind if it's like there's a lesson baked in. It's only when the thing is preachy that I'm like, this is dumb. It's just trying to make me, So
Right.
the book is it's honest. It's her story. It's quirky. Some things don't wrap up because it's life. But it's it's really like relatable and entertaining to read. And I hope that that is a vehicle that brings more eyes to this issue. You
In
know,
other words, it's not a Hollywood movie. This is real life. This is exactly what happened. You have some
You're
loose
like,
ends.
yeah, how you said, and it's entertaining. But the thing is, like, it could be a Hollywood movie. I'm not just saying that because I'd like love it to be, but it actually, I think that if it was fiction, I'd be like, this makes no sense. This is preposterous. This is too crazy. You
You almost
can't
wish it
have
was.
much action. What?
You almost wish it was like a fiction.
Yeah. Oh my. Well, of course, then we wouldn't have all this pain in our lives. But if the book was a fiction, I'd be like, there's too much going on. This is too crazy. Oh my God. And then there's still no way. But it actually happened. And I think that does add an element of credibility. Like, I think that also is something that keeps people reading the book, is they're not just like, this girl was an idiot. She married this guy. She ignored every single red flag. She was 21 years old when she moved to Saudi Arabia in 1979. Okay. Like, this girl's an idiot. Instead, which my mom isn't. My mom's a brilliant woman, very intelligent and amazing, but we're all young
She's
once,
very
and
kind.
I agree. But, you know, instead, because it's a real person story, the fact that it's a real story, I think also adds to that element of reality and relatability, which is like, I better find out I have to find out what happens to her. And I like her because she's being real with me, even though she made a lot of mistakes. So I feel that's how I feel. I never said the name of the book, by the way. It's called Jeddah Bride by
Yeah.
Patricia, my mother, forward by me. Anyway, we can go back to talking, by the way, about more about alienation and how my mom ended up
Well,
finding
no,
this.
this is great. I have a few things. I'm taking a few notes here. Some of the things you mentioned. You say your mom shielded you from her grief.
Hmm.
Elaborate on that. That's quite interesting because most people, like when they have grief, they want to just like vocalize it
Where?
to the world. But the fact that your mom shielded you from that,
Yeah. So my mom, I think like after everything happened, and my mom was really like fighting weekly all the time with the State Department to try to see if she can return her children to her. During this time, she kind of had this revelation, which is like, I have to be able to live, like, I have to have a life. This is what I was saying earlier. It's not like, oh, I have to move on from these kids. No, she loved those kids forever. Those are our family. Those are my siblings. Those are her children. But there's no moving on, okay, from the love you have for your children. But she knew, I have to survive. And so she started to live her life again. My father was like another college boyfriend of hers that she reconnected with. It's interesting that it was easier for her to reconnect with someone who knew her before her life, knew her before the tragedy, and knew her like as she was dating this guy. I can see how that felt accessible to her. And they had this life, they had me. And yeah, my life with my mom, my childhood was like just like joy. Okay, like I the best. My mom's the best. She does, we have a friend, another female author. My mom just did a panel with Judy Mandel, who wrote a book called Replacement Child about being born after the death of a sibling. And my mom was like, "Oh,
ooh,
Amanda, you kind of were my replacement child," but I didn't feel that way. Like I mean, it was joyful. Our time to like my time growing up was really like it was just like joy, like nothing was impossible. It was joy. And then, when I got a little older, like I think 9 or 10 years old, and I knew about my siblings. I didn't really, you're a kid, so I didn't really put it together. The fact that like we had the same, they should be here. Like if we have the same
Right,
mom, they
right.
should. Yes. I didn't put it together. I was so young, but my mom kept their pictures in our home, and she would talk to me about them like all the time. And we
Really?
had stuff from them. Yeah, not all the time, but frequently enough that I wasn't like, who? Like when my mom was like, I got in touch with Sultana, or my sister Sultana, or I'm gonna see Kareem. I found out where he is. I wasn't like, who's that? Like I actually was aware that I had these siblings from a different father. And
Right.
when I was about like 9 or 10 years old, and maybe you read this in the book, but I heard my mom yelling on the phone, like she was just screaming 14 years. And I was like, what? Like I was outside of her office, like I've never heard her talk like this. Who was she yelling at? What's 14 years? 14 years. Like I was 9 years old. 14 years, like when was that? Like
What,
I
what do you
that's
mean 14
yeah,
years?
like I was didn't everything start when I was born, like the beginning of the world. So I no, it was like it was such a it was a really vivid memory of mine. And after that, I was like, what's going on? And then she told me, like, then she was like, when he stole my children, no one let me contact them. And now it's been 14 years. And I finally able to talk to them. I think someone gave her my sister's Hotmail email address. And
That's
so we used
correct.
that on MSN Messenger. And maybe after my sister was maybe after my sister started chatting with my mom, people were more willing to talk to my mom. And 14, I think it was,
Mm,
she had one friend in the family, the cousin who was of her husband, who was basically like the de facto mother of my two siblings when they were there. And I think that's who she was saying that to. I mean, there must be something inside my mom that's a little bit like, how could you guys do this to me? And the book, doesn't actually, the book sort of glosses over that. It doesn't gloss over, it just doesn't include that sort of weird period. And I wonder if I mean, people wanted to write another book. Maybe she could write it about this and I'll help her. But there is a section of her life which is like the couple years that they were it was like the early 2000s. The internet was fresh. We had things like, again, we all had Hotmail email addresses and AIM and MSN Messenger. There was a time when she was kind of having to say to her kids and to their family that she spoke to, like, I'm back. Like, I'm not leaving. They're here in America. I'm going to see them and I'm going to have a relationship with my children again. And that's around that 14-year time. But all the years before then, to my mother's credit, I never felt, she didn't make me feel her pain. She didn't make me feel like I was, you know, I miss my other kids. You're so different from them. First of all, we really love each other. My mom and I have a deep connection since I was a child. They say like you really do. People mostly love their children and connect to them, but my mom and I really, really get along, and we are very similar. I know if she has a podcast and I have one, and people watch them back and forth, they'll probably be like, "Oh my God, it's the same." We're very similar, but and I'm very close to her, but
duplicates.
she didn't I was really shielded from her grief my childhood. She didn't make me feel bad. And then when I was like 9 or again, when it was time and they were a little older and able to be mobile and live on, come to the United States, secretly go on Hotmail and not have to, do things on the internet that your parents don't know about necessarily. When my siblings were a little bit more independent, like late teens, um, that's when that's when the whole thing was explained to me, and that's when I saw how painful it was for my mom. But and by then it was appropriate. I was old enough that it didn't, I was definitely old enough that I could handle it, but it was still tough. I'm gonna be real with you. You know, it was different. I
So
was like
you were
9.
able to reconnect with your siblings then.
Yeah, I was. And, in some ways we could relate because we were all, I was like 10, they were like 16, 17. I mean, to be honest, the gap was in some ways the gap was huge because they came from like I mean, a completely different background. Like Saudi Arabia, their resources that they had, like, they were mostly like they're westernized people. I mean that they were completely westernized. There's no language issue or anything, but like there is I think there was like a little hostility between me and my sister, if
Oh,
I'm gonna
really?
be.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Like I understand, like, because I was there with our mother and she hadn't been with her, and I'm gonna be empathetic.
I
I
see.
feel I don't want to be super revealing and speak on her behalf, but I think she would probably, like anyone who knew the situation, could understand why it wasn't just like, all right, chill, like because I lived my whole life as an only child, and now suddenly I was
Right.
like surprised you have two siblings and everybody
Surprise.
talking about. I grew up in this like part of New Jersey, really beautiful area. Alpine, New Jersey was so nice and very homogenous. Everybody was like, the same upper middle class. We all went to the same schools. All the families had, and it was in a town. My town was built in the 90s. Like it was a golf course that they converted into a town, like into a housing. And so there was no golf, but they made it so all the houses were built within like 2 years of each other. Families with the kids, like all the kids in the neighborhood were like in the same 2 to 5 year age range. So this was like a pretty big thing. I mean, I guess people in our town, like in our close family circles, our friends, my like Patricia's Saudi Arabian children came back. Like that
To
was like
meet
a
you.
that was a pretty major event in like what's like a kind of homogenous town. And so, it was definitely a little bit different, but my brother was a little bit older than me and he was a boy, so he kind of just was like, cute, like pipsqueak, like didn't really disagree with me. My sister and I actually did disagree, which I think might be normal for sisters. Maybe
Okay.
actually maybe it's to be expected. But I loved her too. I
Right.
mean, we got along also. Yeah, the crazy thing is, or not crazy, just interesting thing is when my mom was with her first husband, he was a polo player and she got really into riding horses with him. Um, Horses is like I don't ride horses anymore for the record because it is a committed lifestyle. It is like a lifestyle of a sport that takes hours and lots of money and a lot of your time. But at the time when I was growing up, my mom is still a equestrian, so my mom's still riding horses, and I was riding horses with her, like almost like 5 days a week, right?
Oh,
Really
wow.
competitive across the country. Oh yeah, no, we were like traveling the country on the weekends and doing competitions. My siblings also were doing the exact same style of show jumping that I was doing. So believe it or not, every summer they have this thing called hits, horse shows in the sun, this like event that goes on for 6 weeks in upstate New York, where you ride a horse, a competition that's
Right.
Thursday to Sunday for 6 weeks. And they were at school in Boston and they came to hits with their trainer and their horses. And we came to hits with our trainer from New
Oh,
Jersey.
snap.
And so we sort of had like a built-in way to reconnect that, thank goodness, wasn't just like, all right, everybody sit around and try to figure out what you have in common. We actually all shared this intense sport and we
That's
got along.
crazy.
We found a way. I have to say, it's not a sad ending. I'm friends with my sister. I love her very much. And I love my brother too, although he, of course, he went back to work for family business in Saudi Arabia. My sister's here in the United States, and I love them both. So it actually does have a happy ending. But it was weird to integrate a family like at that age, blend. I guess we were sort of a blended. I mean, my mother's been divorced and married again, so I actually have I saw we have a blended family, to say the least. My mom's
Right.
wedding photo with my stepfather Mitch, whom I love, the wedding photo is like his side of the family. It's like, all right, everyone looks, they're all related. It's very obvious. And then my mom's side of the family, like blonde hair, Arab, red hair. Like it's quite, we're blended for sure. And that's all right. I mean, it's modern. We all love each other. I like having a family. It's good. But it was at the time it
That's,
was difficult. It was new. Yeah.
I mean,
So
there's so many ways we can go from here. But so how did your relationship, or how has your relationship evolved with your siblings then, with your sister
so
and your brother?
with my siblings, when they were here and they were in college, I didn't see them. I saw them a lot. Like, whenever we had a chance, we would see them. But after, I think we really connected, it really clicked in when I was a little bit older, like when I was like an older teen and when I was in college, my sister would come to, she had gone back to Saudi Arabia and she
Mhm.
would come to the United States on and off, for fun. And, finally she decided it's time to move here. And she's been here for a while. I don't know if she's considering going back, maybe, but she loves it here and she has friends and work and people here. And so she came to graduate school in New York City when I was finishing up college in New York City, and we lived near each other. And that really started like the real phase of our sisterhood. That started like our real relationship. And yeah, I like living in the same city as her. I love her friends and the people we know. I've I that as adults, it was easier to connect on things that really matter to us. And so that's my relationship with her. Um, she's here, and so I see her, I love her. Yeah, oh my God. When I was first dating my boyfriend, I was so nervous. Like we were going to like he was dropping me off at my parents' polos at some polo game. And I was like, well, why don't you come like and meet my family? And I'm like, this is so early, but he's like already dropping me off. He might as well. And I remember like we got to the house and my sister like opened the door and I was like, oh my God, thank God he's her. And she helped. Good. She was there for me. So she's been a good sister in the end. I mean, not in the end, but at the end of the
Right.
day, we were able to build a relationship, but it did take a while. My brother I love, but he's in Saudi Arabia, so I don't have access to him the way that I do to my sister here in the United States. And I understand it makes sense for him to be there for his work and his family and what he wanted. And Saudi Arabia is a wonderful place if you're a CEO.
Does he visit? Does he visit often, or not as
No,
frequently, and vice
not as
versa?
frequently.
No.
That's a shame. It's sad for my mom and for me. But yeah, but you know what? He and my mom still have a relationship. They actually are in contact. They talk a lot and they get along. And so I know that's meaningful to her. And because it's meaningful to her, it's meaningful to me.
Gotcha. That's good. And so, what have you learned about yourself looking at your siblings? Like for example, both of you guys like horseback riding. That's the thing. But what
Okay, yeah.
else?
Well, the family thing is, yeah, it's so interesting. Like part of me wants to say, honestly, maybe my mom's genetics are really weak, okay? Because if you saw my siblings, like they do not look like me. They really look like, and I'm like kind of like my father's daughter. So, but what I learned about myself, that's a good one. I mean, it's interesting, right? The horse thing. I did not continue to ride horses, but one of the
Okay.
things it gave me, I actually am not now, I'm not like an extreme. If you like an extreme sport, I would consider horseback riding at the level we did it to be an extreme sport. Okay. You really should only do an
It
extreme
kind
sport.
of is.
What? It kind
It
of
kind of
is.
is. It's kind of dangerous.
Jumps were really high. Okay. Like that's not natural for a horse to jump that high. But the thing is, they sometimes know. And the truth is, the rider really matters. People are like, oh, the horse is the one doing the work. No, no, no. When you're at that level, the horse is not going to do they wouldn't do it. I have the experience that unless I was really there supporting them, egging them on, leading them to it, the horse would be like, bye. I'm not jumping that. I mean, these things were like 3'6", 3'9". These are really tall jumps, a meter high. So that doesn't occur in the wild. Um, that being said, I'm not an extreme horsewoman. I am a skier, which is, I think, another lightly extreme sport.
Yes, it is.
I always complain to my mom, to be one of the things I love to complain about, because as I said earlier, my life is a fight between hope and despair every minute. Um, was like, I can't believe we wrote, like, why'd you make me do it? You wasted so much time. I could have been fluent in Japanese 5 years earlier. I could have been fluent in Japanese 5 years earlier if I'd spent the time learning Japanese instead of riding horses. And it was just this and that. But I will say, early on in my acting career, I shot this amazing commercial for 2 weeks in Chile where I rode horses in the Atacama Desert. And part of what got me the job is that I said, listen, I was like a professional horseback rider for 10 years growing up. And they
Look at
actually,
that.
yeah, the producer was like, to be honest, when we heard that from you and we liked your performance, we were like, okay, good. She's not gonna like need to go to the hospital. So I actually that was one thing that made me glad that I had ridden horses, even though I didn't like it, because it was it gave me an acting job. But on top of that, um, riding horses was a way that I could bond with my mother and with my siblings. And
Okay.
really grateful, even though it was an extreme sport and I didn't want to do it. I'm really grateful for that. Actually, that's the money I made in the commercial by now, who knows where it is. It's been spent, Enrique, okay? But it was
Long
many years
gone.
ago. Money from the commercial has been spent. That's the biggest lie in Hollywood is that people think commercials make money. Or anything makes money for that matter. But the actual really priceless, valuable thing I got out of horseback riding, even though I did it so begrudgingly, is that it is like a deep enough vocation or a deep enough, it's like beyond a hobby. It is such a lifestyle that it actually allowed me to bond more deeply with my mother, A, and B, bond with my siblings when they had not been in my life for the first 10 or 11 years of my life. It did sort of speed run that because it's such a deep world and it's so hard to explain to an outsider that we all knew it, and that sort of gave us something. So
At what age
that
did
was
you start doing equestrian?
when.
Yeah,
I want to say, I hate aging myself, but it was like I think I was in maybe third or fourth grade. It was around 9/11. My
very
mom was like, "Oh my God, the world could end any day. Let me go back to the things that I love doing." I get it. She wanted to go back into it because she was like, you know, who knows what could happen tomorrow? They could like everything could be over. So let me do something I love now. And I was sort of like along for the ride. I mean, I kind of was like,
tag
"Oh,
along.
sure, yeah, I love doing things that you love, Mom." And then I was like, "Oh, wait, you really want me to do this?"
Oh snap! I
Oh,
snapped one that weighs like 1,200 pounds. Can
yeah.
crush
Oh no,
me.
I'm really afraid. I have to say, I don't know, like the level English style horseback riding, like it's it's really a scary thing to do when you're actually doing it and you have to go fast and there's other horses in the room, like
Yeah.
in the ring with you, in the ring. It actually is a pretty intense thing, but I'm really grateful I did it. One, A, because it gave me some money, but B, for my acting career, but B, even more deeply than just wanting money for being in a commercial, is that it was the sort of lingua franca with myself and my siblings and my mom during that time. And that was really valuable. Yeah, an activity that you can do, something you can share that's beyond like, can you believe that their father stole them? Which, of course, right? Like, my mom talks about this in her book. There's a part of it where my brother, early on, she described the first chapter of the book is my mom describing her first meeting with my brother after when he was in college. Her finding him, she hired a PI and found his apartment and went up to him. And when she said you were kidnapped, he was like, "How can you kidnap something that's not your own?" Sorry, how can you kidnap something that's yours? And which is obviously his father's words. And um, we really like it wasn't going to be a successful relationship building if we just hung together and hung around and talked about all the horrible things that happened and all the ways that how are we ever going to move forward. Eventually we do have to talk about those things and we all have one on one together. um my mom and me, my sister, we've all, my sister, my mom, my brother, my mom, everyone, all of that stuff eventually does get addressed. But to build the relationship, having that activity, having that thing that has nothing to do with our family's pain and our family's tragic event, was really a boon. I mean, it really gave us something to connect on. So I'm happy about that.
Well, it must be a thing with horseback riding and parents like your mom and myself because my daughter just started horseback riding a few months back. I enrolled her.
And you have to learn how to horseback ride. Okay, but what about, but now you have to also, You have to also be a competitive horseback rider. What kind of riding is she doing? Do you
She
know?
just started. She just started literally like I think 3 months back. So we'll see where
Fun.
she ends up. Right now, it's just basic instruction, how to handle a horse, etc. So
Yeah,
we'll
how old
see.
is she now?
She's 9. So it must be a thing. So like I was asking this question, I was kind of like, wow, okay, it must be a thing.
The parallels are amazing. No, it's true. If she likes doing it, you got to learn a little bit about horses, even if you don't end up riding yourself. Because to people who love it, it's like an all-consuming, passionate love for horses. A horse
Right.
people call, there is a word called horse people. There's no such thing as soccer people or basketball people. They're horse people because that's how deeply they are into it. It's a very consuming lifestyle sport.
Well, we'll
That's
see.
so weird. I didn't think I was going to talk about horseback riding today, but it actually was
Well, look at you.
random. Randomly, it was the thing that bonded my family together after we came back together. So that's why we went into it.
I'll leads back to the horse. I mean, I read something about horses are very emotionally connected to the rider. Um,
Oh, is that why all my horses were pissed off at me? Maybe.
probably.
That's why all my horses were like, I'm not jumping that. I was like, sick, me neither. Like,
They're like, she's not gonna do it. Why the hell
I
am I gonna
actually,
do that?
yeah, exactly. I was really, no, I will say one to plug it as a good thing. I am like during COVID-19, all of my auditions for as an actress became what they call self-tape. So I would record them myself and email them over to the casting director, using my iPhone. Um, when I've done an audition live or done a callback live, I always I usually that's how I get like there's just like a spark in me that gets me the role when it's live, and I think it's because you have so much adrenaline when you're right. Like, I think I learned how to handle that level of adrenaline and perform well from when I was a kid riding horses, even though I was literally so afraid. So afraid. It was, yeah, I felt like, wow, that was fun when I was like exiting the ring for the
Like my
last time.
heart's about to
Like,
jump out of me.
whoa, oh my God. I would be like, yes, I'm having so much fun. Like if I did my last jump, I'd be like, this is awesome. But all the 36 jumps before that, I was like, I'm gonna kill myself. Um, I'm so afraid. The thing is, it does teach you how to operate under adrenaline. I was also a figure skater, which is that same thing. You're like, I'm gonna crash. And then you're trying to self-expression and you're trying to skate in this artful way, but the whole time you're like, I'm gonna fall and break my knees. And um, I don't know why I love skiing now. I actually am a passionate skier. Like I like push myself on the mountain and everything. But when I was a child, I did all these adrenaline-filled solo sports, and they did teach me. They did give me some kind of survival tactic as an actress, as an adult. So I'm grateful for them for that. But yeah, it's the horses are emotionally connected. I think people who really love them, like, yeah, they're emotional. They connect to humans. There's a lot of therapy riding. Like there's programs where you can use horses to like overcome your grief and stuff. Maybe that's what my mom was doing, but it helped our family oddly. And I don't think it was random. Maybe it's because horses are that way.
Here's
I
a
guess we
question for your mom.
connected on like we could have connected on like wanting to buy designer goods or something like sort of shallow like that. We were all kind of materialistic in our family, but we didn't. Although my sister and I now connect on designer goods. We also really love the New York City like crazy dining scene. All like the funky restaurants in New York. We like try to get into together, and her friends are all like that too. So we connect on things like nightlife. When I was a teenager, she would help me get into some clubs and stuff, and that was awesome.
Borrow
But
my ID.
yeah, well, my ID, that's like a completely different person, different hair color,
Don't
different
worry
national.
about it.
Borrow my Saudi Arabian passport. No one will know. But but, it was pretty fun. I don't remember, when when I was in my senior year of high school, the whole Saudi Arabian family came to not her father, but the everybody else, the grandfather, the aunts, all the cousins and uncles came to the United States because two members of the family were gonna needed some sort of intensive medical care that wasn't
Mhm.
available. It just wasn't advanced enough at the time in Saudi Arabia. Something like eyes and fertility. It was all these things. So they were here in the United States. And that happens. A lot of Saudis will come here to do things like give birth. or do fertility treatment or do do surgeries because they just prefer, maybe it's more comfortable and more advanced here. And so yeah, actually one of our family members had a baby here in the United States a couple years ago, and like I remember the baby nurse was like an Irish American woman, was like, what? But like, she comes into the hotel room they're staying in and it's like all these Ethiopians and all this Arab stuff, but whatever. So they had some family members who were coming when I was in my senior year of high school. This is actually where we really connected. They had some family members who were coming here for a couple months for medical care. And so because of this, I grew up in New Jersey, New York City was right there. After school, multiple times a week, I would go to New York City and hang with them. And there is like the culture in Saudi Arabia is like a lot of, you sit around, you eat dates, you chat for a long, like a long time in the chatting salon. And then finally at like 10 p.m. you go out to dinner. So I was like so tired after a day of school that I was like literally falling asleep at the table. But like all that time just sort of relaxing and chatting and getting to know people who all knew about me and I'd heard about them. And this
Mm.
was another thing that really, I think actually even more than the writing, although that was an amazing catalyst in the beginning, this is the thing that really bonded us. And again, we didn't push all these hard conversations early on. It was really
Just
like,
naturally.
yeah, like getting to know you. What's up? Oh, Amanda wants to blah, blah, blah. Oh, do you like this thing? And oh yeah, I remember being so sad when I wasn't going to see, when they left. I thought it was my last day. I was really upset. And then I had like one extra day. Like somehow my mom was like, "Hey, you know what? Actually, everyone's free. Everyone's free right now. Let's one last time." And I remember feeling like so happy I got one last chance to see them
Yeah.
again, all in the same place. Because that's like probably that is never gonna happen again. The grandparents who were there, of course, have now all passed away. They were very old at the time, like they're dead. And so actually I knew I'm never going to get this again. And I really love them, even though like we're very different. I mean, even though they're I I've seen them in bits and pieces since, but it was never like a full family affair like it was in my first semester of my senior year of high school. And it was one of the defining moments actually of my time there, of my age in my time in high school, even though it had nothing to do with the fact that I was in high school. It was pretty amazing.
So if
They
I
were,
understood this correctly, is basically you got to meet the entire family from your
yeah,
siblings' side, however, except their dad, and they
yeah.
accepted you like one of them.
Except to me, oh, I was the member of the family. Isn't that
Fascinating.
amazing?
Yeah,
Isn't
yeah.
that is that culture. Is
Hmm.
that the mother of the child, my mom, Patricia, is the mother of the children of their family. So she's part of their family. She's a daughter of that family. And
Right,
I'm her daughter. So I guess I'm a granddaughter of this family
right.
in Saudi Arabia. And you know me, I've been a foreign exchange student in Japan, and so I wasn't like completely unfamiliar with really, really, really old ancient cultures. My host family is still like my Japanese host family is still like that's our daughter. Like, I mean, I'm their daughter. And I called my Japanese parents mother and father. You call any parent in Japan if you're in their
Yeah,
house, mother and father. You don't That's their role in the house. And so I
true.
sort of was I wasn't unfamiliar with it, but I was considering the nature of why they weren't in our lives for so long. It's pretty amazing. I mean, it's wonderful that it's actually a generous piece of that culture. Is that I know there's a lot, especially with current events, there's a lot of thoughts about the Middle East and this culture and that culture. And I there's nothing is black and white. There's no perfect 100% good thing and there's no 100% evil thing. But I have to say, to their credit, one of the things that is beautiful about them is that there was no like, well, she's not really like, don't include Amanda. She's not really one of it. Like, I was immediately included, and my mother was embraced too. It's actually pretty powerful and generous,
That
and
is
it
awesome.
amazing experience. They were here for like maybe a month or 6 weeks, and I really like I was with them almost every like not every day, but pretty close to every day, all the time. I was like hanging around in New York City is so close to where I grew up in New Jersey. And so I would just leave school and go there, and then I'd finally go home at night. It was deep.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's great. I think to some extent, I think that's the way it should be. And I can relate to some extent in that sense. For example, in my family, current my situation, uh, my daughter's going to go to the United States this summer for the first time,
Oh my God.
and my parents are like, "Hey, like, have her mom come. She's more than welcome at the house. Like, she can stay. She can borrow one of the cars that we have." And even though we've been separated now for divorced for now for 9 years, give or take,
Okay.
8 years, it's like, yeah, she's welcome. She can partake. We have a house for her where she can stay. She has a car where she can stay. It's not a problem.
Well,
And so,
first of all, congratulations. This is a pretty major development, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. But
It's
today's about you
last, well,
though.
no, that's a pretty major development. I'm really happy for you. Oh my God, I could cry. That's good luck. Wait, do you need to learn Japanese? I can help you, number one. Number two, um, that's the thing though, right? Like actually, even though it's your instinct to be like, no, fuck you, like get out of here. This is my time. I've waited 15 years, 14 years for this, right?
14
To my
years.
mom. I waited for get out of here. My mom was like, this is in the book. I don't want to give it away, but I just will. It's very, my mom has like a where are they now sort of epilogue at the end of the book. And basically she says in it, and she had to make a decision, which is that she could call everybody out at these family events because she went to a few and be like, you know what, you guys, this is bullshit, okay? Like, you guys, oh, I'm your daughter, like the daughter that you wouldn't let
Where
see
was
your
I for
kid.
14 years?
She could have done it. And she was like, "Ah, I want to do that so badly. But she saw her kids and she's like, what would I get from that? Yeah, it would feel great in the moment. It would feel amazing. And then my children would be so uncomfortable having to choose between me and the family they know that they probably I would never have a deep relationship with them ever again. I'd have like no chance of true reconciliation at all. And
Sure.
that is, that's the thing. Even though it feels so good to exact, to get things back, or now it's my turn to make you hurt, actually, one must let it go in order to have the thing that's important is the relationship with your children.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
like,
And to that, I had my moments where I've met or I saw my former in-laws, and
yeah.
it was not planned. And yeah, you just let it go. Whatever.
No, but
But that's another story. Maybe we can do another
it's
interview
a
for that
lot of,
one for the youth
of
board.
course, takes a lot. I'd love to talk about it, but it takes a lot of restraint to that's, I mean, to your credit, it takes a lot of that's a deep, deep meditation. That takes a lot of restraint to be able to do that because the instinct is, and why wouldn't it be like, how dare you? I hate you so much. You ruined this thing for me. But then it's like, I don't know. I felt that because I hung around with the family and they treated me like I really was their family. There was no like she's not because I was their family as far as that's how it is. It just normalized the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, it was weird. Like, if people ask, like, what's going on? Like, I was thinking it was kind of weird. I was talking to my friends at school. I was so excited about it, but it was kind of different. It was the first time I met all these people. It was actually the first time I met the whole family. And so they were treating me like family. So I was like ecstatic, but it was very foreign and new to me. Um, you know, like, it was odd. It was weird, but by not making a big deal out of it and normalizing it, it actually helped us bond. It was quite beautiful. That's the
No, it
best.
sounds like it. It sounds like it. And curious though, if you could write a brief anonymous letter to both of your siblings, right? What would
Oh
be
my God.
one truth that you'd want them to know that they don't know today?
A truth that I want them to know that they don't know today. I don't know what they don't know. I think I would they're never gonna read the book, but I think I'd want them to know how my mom fought for them and how I think I'd really want that because my mom, I don't know if she's gone over that stuff with them or not. how she fought and how like all the things that she tried to do to get them back and all the people she tried to talk to. But I think I would want them to know how deeply she searched for them. How it
What
was.
do you mean they would
I
never
mean,
read
I'm
the
sure
book?
they know that she looked for them, but I think I wish they would, if they could read the book, they'd probably see, um, I don't know, I think they would, maybe I'd want them to feel what she, understand what she felt.
Why do you think they would never read the book?
I know that they're never going to read the book because it's too, I know they're not. They don't want to. It's all come I mean, I empathize with why. A lot of times, if your parent does a memoir about your family and it's not like they were great, or it's a tell-all, well, then memoir's gonna sell if it was like and everything was perfect. Once upon a time, there was no conflict, happy ever after. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be revealing. I understand. I don't know if I'd want to read my mom's memoir about her time with my dad. Maybe. I don't know. I think it would cause a lot of pain. I was actually watching a reality TV show. I almost never watch reality TV because I'm intellectual. But no, I
Mhm.
was watching one called, I think, My Unorthodox Life. It was like about a woman who left the Orthodox Church, not the Orthodox Church, or the or you know Orthodox Judaism, and she wrote a memoir. And there's a scene where her kids are like, yeah, I'm not gonna read mom's book. I don't want to read it. I don't want to read her book about dad and breaking up with him and and I totally empathize. So I was like, wow, that's probably how my brother and sister feel. They're like, and both of them, my brother said to my mom, like, listen, it's not really bothering me. I mean, a Daily Mail article came out about them, and that wasn't great. He was like, that wasn't easy for me, but the rest of it, it's okay. He said something like, "It's all right. I it doesn't bother me. It's your story to tell." And that's a very brave and mature way to be. I don't know. My sister's not gonna read it. Definitely not. Too weird, too painful.
Could be, could be. Hopefully they'll read it someday.
Hope
So
so
hopefully,
too. But
hopefully.
I wouldn't blame them if they didn't.
So how has your family's history influenced your personal growth and outlook on life?
It's definitely made me more of an open-minded person. I was a foreign exchange student in Japan, and I didn't try to fight them on what their culture was. I love Japanese culture, but like I
Mom said you've been here a few times over the last several
yeah,
years.
and I learned Japanese fluently, and I work, now I work in anime with Japanese stuff. And, when I was doing all of that, I
I
was
live
kind of
close to Osaka, by the way. So whenever you're
really
here,
where? Kobe? Wait, are you in Japan right
no,
now?
yeah, I'm in Japan right now. I've been
Oh, yeah.
I've been living here for the last several months now. I mean, so in 2002, when I reunited with my daughter, I came to Japan for 3 months. I returned to the US and I kind of basically left to
Oh,
South America. And then after that, I kind of traveled the world. And then I just
oh
kind
my
of
God.
settled in Japan.
Wow. I know Japan is a wonderful place.
So
Where in
I've
Osaka? Where do
been,
you live? In like the Osaka prefecture, or is
I
that?
live in the Aichi prefecture.
Oh, you live in
So
Aichi.
I'm
Okay,
like
yeah.
I'm like
Well,
45 because I'm like 45 minutes away from Osaka and I'm
of
in Aichi.
course. Oh no, I know well. My host family was in Okayama, and
Ah, okay, yeah. I know what
yeah, but
Okayama
I
is.
go to Tokyo a lot, but I really hit that Tokaido Shinkansen back and forth, baby. Up and down the Western Sea, the Eastern Seaboard, of course. No, no, no. I have a friend. I mean, I've got a friend in Shikoku. I've got a friend on Hakata Island down there. It's really cool. People really sleep on that part of Japan. Usually, I think probably most American tourists like stop at Osaka. Like they don't, I don't know. I mean, I used to when I was in high school, I liked visiting Kobe. I don't know why. It's just like a pretty town,
Yeah,
but it's not super touristy. I actually feel like it's more touristy for Japanese. But um,
I agree.
you know, like yeah, I was like, wow, first I thought you were in America, and I was like, for somebody who's in America, he really has like Japanese, that looks like a Japanese apartment if I've ever seen one. That's
It's
very
a Japanese house. That's correct. I'm in a
very
Japanese
Japanese
house.
decor. But
Yeah.
like, how did it change me as a person? Okay, so first of all, I'll tell you this. As an American at the time, it really gave me a perspective on 9/11, which was like that's a big thing that we were dealing with. And in a country, a lot of impressions coming from that. And I was not afraid I wasn't afraid of Arabs or people from the Middle East because I knew my mom was like, they're our family. And I also knew them. And that was that. that gave me a perspective where I didn't get that like American fear. I didn't feel that way because I wasn't scared because I knew them. So number one, it meant it at a time when we were really thinking about the Middle East in this country. I mean, we all kind of always are. They're like our, I don't know what's up with them, but they're such a big friend slash frenemy of the United States. But whatever the
I love
case
the
was,
Middle East. I was there. I spent several months there. I love it.
yeah, cool. I've actually I want to go, but it gave me a perspective and a openness to the Middle East that I think a lot of other American kids didn't have. So, number one, that. Then, when I was a foreign exchange student and I like it because I knew about old cultures and Japan sort of primed me for them and they kind of primed me for Japan, I just I just all clicked. I got it. Like, okay, when you're here, this is your role. You act in a, not like you don't act like yourself, but you kind of get into a groove. You act this way. These are the values. And on the one hand, I love American individualism and the way we like can redefine and question everything. On the other hand, there is something really comforting and stabilizing about being like, okay, great. I'm in this house. I'm the daughter. It's done. I'm their daughter. This is my family. We're going to do things together as a family. That is, I mean, this isn't, that's really quite powerful.
True. True. Yeah, I mean, I'd say so. Um,
Hold on just one second. I just have to shoot somebody an email.
no, no worries, no worries. But yeah, I would say so. I mean, like you do get that a lot from like other cultures. Like for example, myself being uh, Mexican heritage, but born and raised in America, you still see a little bit of what you're saying with the Saudi Arabia culture, where it's all about the family. We're all pulled together, right? And to that point where even when my ex-wife is going to the U.S. or my daughter's going to the U.S. for the first time in 8 years, it's still very
Wow,
like, hey, like what happened happened. We're not holding her guilty and charged and crucifying her for what she did. It's like we'll receive her with open arms. And
that's
yeah, we're
amazing.
glad
And
to
you're
see her.
doing it when your daughter's young. She's only 9 or 10 years old. That's
She's
pretty
nine.
powerful.
She's nine.
She's not, she doesn't have to be 17 and 18 to finally find you.
Yeah, it's a little bit different now.
It's
But
actually more powerful when she is 17, 18 years old and she's thinking about things like college and where she's going to go and she has some autonomy. Um, like she might choose to be near you.
we'll see.
Of
We have our
course.
clashes.
But that's amazing. And you kind of have to do it for her sake, and I'm happy you are.
Yeah, yeah. It's fun. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's fun. It's challenging at times. Um, but yeah, it's definitely an entire new dimension in her life that she um, is experiencing. And I think the biggest challenge is that she doesn't speak English 100% fluent.
Oh, of
And
course. Well, she learned her brain is still very malleable.
it is, and she understands it, but she can't speak it. And then the thing is with me, like, I don't want to speak with her in Japanese, even though I know some Japanese and I'm learning. Because if I start speaking to her in Japanese, she will automatically go to that.
Go to Japanese, of course.
Yeah. So I'm like, no, 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 just English, just English. But what I've noticed is that Spanish is a lot easier for her, which is quite amazing.
Wow. Okay, so in 3 years, you're gonna have a trilingual genius. She's 12 years old. That's great. And you know what, though? I have to say, she'll probably warm up to English more when she's in America over the summer because it's around you. I
Yeah.
always, it's been like I haven't taken a Japanese lesson in a couple years, but whenever I go to Japan, like it's like immersion, like immediately am fluent. Like, it all comes back. Like that part of my brain is just like
Welcome
reawakened.
home.
Anyway,
That's very
so
cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, we'll see. Well, if you're in Japan, you're more than welcome to stop by, say
I'm
hi.
gonna, I
Um,
am gonna stop by.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like hiking architecture.
If
I
you want to
like
go to
new.
some other remote places of Japan, I'd love to take you. I mean, I have a car here, so for me, there's some areas
Wow.
of Japan that I tell family and friends that come visit. I'm like, look, there's some places here that most people do not know
To
about.
get to. No, no, no.
and
That's
we'll
the
never
thing.
experience because
I
you're just limited by the train. And places that I know, you need a car to get there, and they're
Yeah,
absolutely gorgeous.
having a car is one amazing Japanese hack. I do speak, I mean, I noticed that, of course, the better I got at Japanese, the more accessible the country was to me. That's
Um,
obvious, but really a lot. Like the more I was able to speak Japanese, the more like, stores, places, friendships, like things really opened up for me and I got a deeper relationship with it. But I don't have a car and I'm afraid to drive a Japanese car because I think,
it's easy.
what if I'm bad at driving a car? And then I get in a car accident in Japan and then I go to a Japanese prison. I don't want to do that.
Do you drive in New York?
Yeah. Oh, in New York, no, but I do know how to drive. So I can drive.
No, it'll be
I can,
easy.
it's not that, what?
So
It'd be
it'll be
easy.
easy. It's easy.
Well, we'll put that plan on the books. Enrique, I do have to go, but it was such a pleasure to chat with you for this morning. I guess it's
Yeah,
nighttime.
likewise.
Thank you so much. And please, I'm really excited for youth board this weekend. I don't know when we're gonna do it, but
Yeah,
um
we'll reconnect
excited.
then.
Yeah.
Cool. All right,
All right.
Amanda.
Thank
Nice seeing you again. It's been a while.
you. It has been. And I'm
Yeah.
so excited for all these updates in your life.
Oh, no worries. Take care.
See ya.